camera earlier. Small differences, only 2 Graveyard Trespasser, 2 Sheoldred, only 2 Kroxa, 1 Tenacious Underdog, and then 1 Strangle, 3 Dreadbore, and then mostly the normal cards. Sideboard is a lot more clean in the numbers category, but
nice. And then I have David's list, and looks like he's playing blue-white control, pretty stock, a couple sensors, 3 Memory Deluge, a Dwari Disruption, only 2 main deck Shark Typhoon, 4 Portable Hull, the full 4 Absorbs. Other than that, just looking pretty typical. And
yeah, and it is a 60-card blue-white list, so no companions. As we see things kicking off, we have, turn 1 tap land into Blood Tithe Harvester. Clean fair magic. So we got untap and Portable Hold the Harvester, and another Glacial Fortress. Double Glacial Fortress is that's a hand. And I think I still see a Hall in the hand.
Yep.
So hopefully the awkward mana doesn't come back to bite to bite David. But it looks like more awkward mana, a Castle locked mana entering tapped on 3 into, you guessed it, tapped Hall on 3.
Pioneer mana bases showing their strength here in this match.
It's funny because these are all one slight optimization of a land play, different from being perfect pristine mana. And instead we have this awkward spot where this Bone Crusher Giant is going to get censored on turn 3 because the Castle locked mana enter tapped, which is pretty brutal, but it's okay. We still get to resolve our 3-drop here, which I believe that's a reflection of the Mirror Breaker coming into play, and a second Castle lock. So
very nice.
Those showcase copies, obviously, gotta represent. And obviously, most expensive card on the table is probably that $50 token or whatever.
I think the most expensive card on the table is the cost of putting Castle Lockthwain in your deck with only 6 Swamps or something like that. And here we see a Portable Hole come down and take out the Goblin Shaman.
Just some brutal digs, I guess. The upside here for the black for Dillon here is we still have a blood token, we still have our Fable, so we're gonna get to rummage some cards away. Eventually, we're gonna get our 2 out of it. Meanwhile, our opponent's down 2 Portable Holes, so we're gonna get rid of a Fatal Push, another Blood Tithe Harvester, draw 2 more cards.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like David has that many cards left in his hand, resources left to keep.
Also missing
this game,
which is pretty brutal for these blue decks now because they really need to start getting to 6, 7, even 8 mana. So we have a second Fable coming down, I believe, unless that's a Graveyard Trespasser.
I think so.
We'll find out momentarily. Looks like it's a Trespasser. This is actually, even though the graveyard part component of Trespasser is not the most relevant in this matchup, it is one of the better cards in this matchup. It demands either a sweeper or a 2-for-1 because of the ward ability, obviously. And so we're going to see a cycled Shark Typhoon. And the Trespasser, instead of electing for the drain here, we've gone to remove the censor. We've got to keep the cards in our graveyard for our Croxes in the future. Makes sense. I'm a little sad we didn't see a 0/0 Shark come into play and immediately die, but
gotta maintain that game state, right?
Small things. And here we're going to see a reflection of the Mirror Breaker flip over. And also it's nighttime. Another thing that I am very much in love with.
Is that because the Graveyard Glutton gets to attack for more, or?
It's because it's a really well-designed mechanic and makes the gameplay really interesting. Yeah. So Thoughtseize, one of the premium cards in matchup, finally drawn. Looks like it's going to try to clear the way. It's going to get traded for a Dovin's Veto, but Dillon's still ahead on the board here. He's going to get to make a nice attack for 4. And
but just, I made the comment that David doesn't have that many cards in his hand, and he does still have 4 cards in his hand. But with both players have the same number of lands in play, Dillon has many more permanents that he's actually working with and a similar number of cards. And so I just see Dillon having a lot more agency and choices as this game goes on, and hopefully that means
Yeah.
that he can leverage it to win.
And he's sitting on 3 spells here. He's got a Dreadbore. He's got another flip card, either another Trespasser or another Reflection. My assumption is it's probably a Reflection given when he chose this card. He activated his Bludgeon, discarding Sheldred, which makes some sense. We want to hit our land drop, start getting our castle online. Makes me think it's a Reflection in hand, though, because I think it was a Trespasser. I would discard second Trespasser. I don't know. Hard to say. 5th land here for David. And next turn, we have access to Farewell to clean up everything. So potentially, we're going to see a Teferi come down here.
There is also a Memory Deluge, which would give you more looks at making sure you hit that 6th land for your Farewell.
Yeah, the scary thing is next turn, you're potentially looking at 10 damage just from the Reflection and the Trespasser. And we can't really minus profitably because the Teferi is going to get attacked by the remaining creature. So I do think if we're going to Teferi plus, we're just going to accept that our Teferi is going to die. And have to move on from there. Also, don't forget, there's 2 portable holes in play. Right, it's got a lot of permanents.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So the interesting thing now is, obviously we're going to copy our guy more than likely if you have the mana and get in there for some damage. Do we attack the Teferi for damage, or do we just fire off this Dreadbore?
I like spending cards that have been stuck in our hand for a long time. That's one thing I like doing.
That's fair. There are 3 Dreadbores in the list, so it's not like this is like the only Dreadbore. We need to save it for a specific answer spot, which makes me more inclined to use it. The upside to not doing it is potentially we get to activate our castle and pay 4 life to draw a card, which is powerful. I think that's what we're thinking through, is just like what sequence we want to do this turn. Also, if you're going to attack Teferi, there's a chance you don't even want to activate the Reflection. You just want to attack both of them into the Teferi. But we also have to think about like what 2 mana cards our opponent can have. He could have March. He can have, I think it's just March, basically. I could have an Iganjo, but we don't have enough mana to channel it. So this is like the last turn to get in for that. Looks like we are going to go with the Dreadbore line. So Dreadbore the Teferi. And then do we play our second Reflection, or do we save and make a token in our opponent's end step? Looks like that's where line we're going to go for. We're going to probably save and make a token in the end step here. So we're just going to attack for 6. Okay, attack for 6 and then play our Reflection. Okay, so 6 comes in. Trespasser, I think, is going to eat 2 creatures here to get some life drain action. Oh, just 1 creature and the Teferi. Got it. So damage taking 6 to 10 plus the drain is 9 and 21 for Dillon. And pass back, no plays.
So with David at 9, we are looking at lethal on the next turn, right?
Correct. Yes, it's a lethal attack next turn if you activate Reflection to make another Trespasser. Or Graveyard Button. My apologies. And Iganjo going into play means that we probably have a sweeper, because I probably would not put that card into play if I did not. That, or we're going to deluge and look for something. I'm not sure we can find a portable hole, but that doesn't kill any of our opponent's creatures.
Nope.
Because of the way the rules currently work. Well, gone are the days of EE for 0 to kill Huntmaster and the token. Also, gone are the days that Huntmaster was playable.
Because it's not legal in this format, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Usually I would play it in this format.
Right.
So just past the turn.
People play Hana and Alana,
I guess.
Partners, so.
Thought they were roommates. I
Got it.
So Iganjo passed. We don't have enough mana to activate Hall. And when there's not a Castle Ardendale hiding down there. So representing to Dillon that we have something. Looks like we're looking at Tenacious Underdog, Sokenzon, and I believe another Trespasser is the double face card. So we can channel Sokenzon and activate. The risk here with activating is there an instant speed spell that can kill an untapped graveyard button? I don't believe there is. So that would be the risk. Looks like we're just going to attack with Graveyard Club. Indeed. Seems like we're going to probably have a Wandering Emperor come in here.
Agreed.
And we're probably going to discard a card from our hand to get rid of that guy.
Make sure it resolves.
Discarding Portable Hole. And then I gain 2 and go to 11.
Yep.
Very important.
Made sure that Trespasser went to the right spot.
Why did we not Trespasser in response? Oh, because we're just going to play another Trespasser. Okay, so Tenacious Underdog. Nice to see the third Portable Hole gone, because now there's probably not going to be a clean answer to that Underdog either.
True.
And we're passing. So I guess we're going to activate Castle Locksmith is the plan, / potentially activate Tenacious Underdog, depending what our opponent does. Plus is the Emperor, no target. So there's a Deluge in hand. We can activate Hall. I might have made a 2/2.
I think I might also have made a 2/2, but we'll see how it pans out for David.
Did activate our Castle Locksmith in their turn, taking 2 damage onto 19. Drew Thoughtseizes. That's what we like to see. Unless you're the blue-eye player, and then this is not what we like to see. Feeling this Urborg is going to come into play, and then we're going to probably cast this Thoughtseize. Yes. And I like doing that before I take any of my other actions, because capping the castle.
We still got another castle in play. It's okay.
Oh yeah, my apology. I forgot. Yeah, it's okay. So I guess we have 7 swamps. We have an Urborg.
Ah, right,
Yeah,
right.
Reveals Deluge Shark Typhoon. Interesting. So we're at 11. You can kill the Wandering Emperor if you take the Deluge. There will be a large shark in play if you do that.
Mm-hmm. And you've probably sacrificed your Kiki Jiki, your reflection.
No, you can make a copy of Tenacious Underdog.
Oh,
and
true,
then swing
true.
double Underdog in. And then they can kill the real one, but
Right.
you can blitz that one back.
Right.
Cost you a mana to do that. I would probably think that that's the right choice. Our opponent gets to draw 1 card, but Dillon prefers to live dangerously. He's going to leave him with exactly Memory Deluge and 3 remaining mana to get out of this spot, which is, I think, respectable too. Because if your opponent makes Hall active this turn, they can't Deluge, and if they don't make Hall active, they're going to take like 6.
Mm-hmm.
And well, not quite, because you have to kill the Wandering Emperor this turn because you can't let it activate again.
And David's got to find good cards off his Deluge, not just more lands and Portable Holes.
Sure, that's true. So we're going to see a copy of the Tenacious Underdog. Gains haste. We're going to sacrifice the end of turn. I believe these are both going to go at the Wandering Emperor, if I had to guess. It's possible just the token will go at the Wandering Emperor and the Tenacious Underdog will go to David, but I believe they just both went to the Wandering Emperor. David declines to animate and block. Fear of potential fatal push, I guess. Paying for the ward. We have,
I believe that's another Fable.
another Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So we're going to Deluge on the stack and try to find a counterspell. Absorb would be perfect here, putting us back to 14. Minimal pressure left on the board. And, we're going to flashback this Deluge because it's still in our graveyard. And it's a veto, which is still pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Surprising number of targets in veto in this deck because a lot of the threats are not creatures. And it's daytime. Correctly daytime. Cast 2 spells that turn.
Man, way to go, players. Keeping track of that.
And I think this is going to be a main phase to Fairy plus into end step Wandering Emperor, exiling your Tenacious Underdog. That might be the game. I mean, 2
What do you
castles
think?
is good. That's what it looks like. There's definitely a Wandering Emperor in hand. Let's see if he knows to do it in his end step after the trigger resolves.
There's definitely some communication going on.
I think they're clarifying some life totals potentially. So end step, untap my lands, still in my end step.
Yeah.
Get this Wandering Emperor into play. And I believe we're going to get rid of the Underdog because the reflection by itself is not very scary.
Mm-hmm. And it puts the Underdog into exile where it cannot be blitzed anymore.
Where we don't want it to get blitzed.
Yep.
Your Wandering Emperor dies this way, and potentially your Teferi dies if your opponent draws a good one. But your opponent does have to draw a good one this turn or the game will be over. because you'll get to flashback your deluge, you
Yep.
get a card off Teferi, you'll
Mhm.
get the mana off Teferi.
Yep.
Like, yeah. And now I think Dillon is in the position of trying to figure out if he needs to activate Castle Lockman before he casts the card in his hand or after. I did not see the picture though.
I did not either.
Looks like we're going to activate first, if I had to guess. So we're taking 2.
What's
going
the
to
best draw
17.
then?
Probably Dreadbore.
Okay.
Trespasser's not bad because you could Trespasser and remove the deluge, and then you're just staring down at just a Teferi and a Hall.
Right.
But you know, I don't think we have a lot of choice here. The other option is you can draw a land so that you can activate Castle again and try to have double Castle against a Fairy. It looks like we did find either a Fable. It looks like a Fable.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to copy the Goblin token, get a treasure, kill the Wandering Emperor, and we have our Fable and our Reflection versus Fairy Hall and Deluge. So I'm pretty sure, unless David draws Farewell clean off the top, I believe the first thing he's going to do is flashback Memory Deluge. He might plus the Fairy first. All right, he's going to plus the Fairy first. And then I would be shocked if he did not either cast a very good spell or he's going to cycle first.
Mhm.
Okay. Don't have enough mana to deluge unless we have an untapped land here.
4 mana.
Verdicts to kill the creatures. Okay, we're going to get a redraw and we can castle in our upkeep to get 2 cards to look at for our reflection next turn. Field of Ruin was the land. So one of those castles is going to get killed here.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's thinking in his upkeep if he wants to castle, which I believe you should do.
I think also David could be thinking about activating Field of Ruin.
Sure, I think he's going to let his opponent draw their card and resolve the Fable stuff first.
Yep.
Although, if he activates the first castle, do you field the second castle before the thing? Unclear. All right, so chapter 2. We're going to respond to the chapter 2 ability and castle. The upside of doing this way is you get to look at the card first. The downside is you take an extra damage, which probably doesn't matter. You get a 15 through Liliana. This is not the time for that card to shine. It's a little past its expiration.
Teferi has already come down.
Yeah.
2 cards
If it some reason is scary next turn, David will simply minus on the. Yeah, we're gonna pitch Liliana in the hive and draw 2. Find a Croxa. It's probably one of the only cards that can compete with Teferi at this point in the game. As this turn, Teferi is not going to get a chance to minus on it because it'll be in the graveyard, and next turn it's going to escape. Netting 6 damage over those 2 turns, probably putting David down to 7.
But yeah, Dillon's choosing to play another Trespasser instead.
I guess this way we get to remove the Deluge first and then go for the Croxa line. And
There
the
you go.
Croxa's safe in our hand. Nothing's going to happen to it.
True, and we do have enough mana.
We also have a treasure.
There you go.
Putting David to 10.
Right, and even without the treasure, still had enough mana to both cast and then escape Croxa.
No field end step on one of the castles. I guess he's hard committing to saving it for a creature land. Because I would imagine that you would want to field one of the castles. I guess now is going to be the real telling point to be double field.
Right.
Or yeah, the Trespasser ended up being a really good draw here because not flashing at the daily last turn is really bad. No fields. Wow. It's also nighttime. No fields. Draws mountain. We're going to flip our Fable over. He's back. He's the reflection of the Mirror Breaker. Mountain for turn, but so no, we're just in the turn. Okay. So I believe Crox is about to get escaped. And then we'll figure out what's happening after that.
Makes sense.
Here he is. And I believe we're just going to remove everything we're going to leave creatures in our graveyard. And everything else should just not matter. We're leaving creatures in the graveyard, of course, so that Graveyard Glutton can be more damage if necessary.
Right. And it does look like everything that was exiled is a non-creature spell.
Yep. So Crox is going to come in, trigger. Well, it's on the stack. Well, yeah, we'll see if it's going to resolve.
Mm-hmm.
Absorb. It's good for cashing in for 3 life back to 13, but we can just escape the Croxa again,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Croxa gets escaped again, and then Teferi would die, right? Because we have
the reflection can't attack this turn. It just came in.
Oh, okay. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
so
right.
we can
You're
put the Teferi to 3 so that if he minuses on the Croxa, the Teferi dies,
right.
which I believe is what's going to happen. So Croxa coming back in, putting David back down to 10, as he has no cards to discard. Is there enough mana to act for the Hall, actually? Is that why we didn't field? I guess there is, because otherwise we would have made an attack step.
Okay. Okay.
So that makes some sense.
There's 2 other lands stuck behind the field down there at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Got it.
The Teferi up to 8. This is the scary turn. We just need to find one more good one and make the emblem, and everything will be okay. Playing the land does not indicate we found a good one, because now we can't kill the trespasser.
Yeah, really needed something to get that Croxa into exile somehow.
Unless it's a Wandering Emperor, we are all getting sandbagged.
Hmm.
I mean, at any point, farewell would have been the entire game.
Yep.
The
absolutely.
other thing is, if Croxa just dies, currently there's not a lot of cards in the graveyard. The tricky thing this turn is we can make another Croxa to take the card out of your hand.
Hmm.
No, that's not what it's not the card. It's just non-legendary.
Nope.
Oh my god. Oh, another non-legendary. Okay. Yeah, ignore me. I'm bad at this game.
That's a tough one. That's the.
I'm only good at casting Dark Ritual. That's about it.
I mean, evidently, we're also good at copying our legendary creatures with Reflection Key.
I mean, only when it's legal. In this case, it's not. So.
Got it. Okay.
That's a complicated turn.
Absolutely. And we're not exactly sure what Dillon drew.
Yeah. I think it's a spell, because I think otherwise it would be in play and we'd be slamming the castle lock for the activation to think about what we're actually going to do. So he's going to make a Graveyard Glutton, or attempt to make a Graveyard Glutton. That's going to come into play.
Mm-hmm.
There's no creatures anymore because they've all been exiled to the Croxa second escape.
It's not like David plays those.
Yeah, it's true. So we're going to get rid of 2 counterspells out of the graveyard. No life lost or gained in that exchange. And then I think we're going to try to kill this Teferi by attacking it with everything. No Croxa attack, or Croxa is going to attack opponent.
A couple more.
Flashing my
exiles
cards to
there.
my opponent with off the table.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
This attack. So if Croxa is attacking our opponent, this attack indicates it's fatal push, and that we're going to push and pay on the Hall. And that is where Croxa is attacking the face. We're in discard absorb. We don't take any damage as a result. And I don't think you have an option to fire up the Hall. I mean, if your opponent has fatal push, that's tough. But I think we need to block the Croxa this turn.
Choosing to save Teferi though.
I'm just taking 6. Okay. Down to 4. Teferi down to 4 as well. Blocking the original Trespassers, so the token will die in a turn here.
Yep.
And it looks like it's a Blood Tithe Harvester as the card for Dillon. Just trying to figure out how he wants to tap his mana and whether he should castle first. I would think you should castle first here, because you can draw Liliana to Edict the Hall.
Okay.
Away.
That's
which is a reasonable
pretty cool draw
step.
Yeah.
And that you won't be able to do that if you cast the Harvester first. Going down to 13 off the Lockthwain.
We drew another Croxa. So
Put them to 1. Might as well play it, I think. We're going to put our Blood Harvester, get our blood token. I guess you can hold it to rummage to the blood token, but I feel like 3 damage is worth more than that. Oh, maybe you can hold it for next turn to discard their card to take Wandering Emperor out of the equation. That might be better.
We are definitely moving to our end step and sacking that thing.
And finally, the first castle's gonna get killed with a first Field of Ruin. So again, farewell, great draw step. I'm trying to think what else we can draw. If we draw Typhoon plus spells, that might be good enough. It's tough because you need to end up with you either need to kill the Kroxa or you need to end up with a non-land card in your hand when you're done so that you don't take the damage from the attack trigger. Otherwise, you're dead to the one that you don't know about but is in Dillon's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a shuffle on the second one? I believe. Yep. 2 swamps, 1 basic mountain. No more basics left for the black red deck. Strip mine unlocked. I don't think there's any more Field of Ruins to use though. Oh, one more we can draw.
Interestingly, that is some of the impact of Dominaria that we've seen, is just like the field numbers continue to tick up because this black red deck has gotten better. And it's more important to have field in this matchup for all of Black Red's good lands, whether it be their man lands or their castles.
Ooh. Main phase is the Wandering Emperor to remove the Kroxa. I like this. Gains the 2 back to 6. To Fairy Plus. And then I believe we're just going to go to end step and untap from Lantz. Here. Yep. I do like the main phase because it's very risky to not do this now, because if your opponent you don't know they have a second Kroxa, but if they have a Thoughtseize, if they have a Liliana, like you just don't get to do this if that happens.
Yeah.
So do a Fatal Push, which is probably going to be the game because I think the Hull is going to finally get killed. Kroxa coming down. Trying to think if we want to respond and at what point we want to respond. Doing some math. Everyone's favorite. The Hull is just off screen to the left. It looks like that's going to be the game. The second Bloodtide Harvester attack is going to be not lockable.
David's scooping it up.
So Dillon picks up game 1. Very interesting back and forth. I think that, yeah, I'm not sure. There were some points where I might have taken different actions. I'm not sure if these were like just like incorrect or if I'm just like have a different line that I like. I'm not sure my line would have worked out for either player differently. It's like really complicated. The other thing about the Field of Ruin thing is Dominaria United also putting more non-basics that people want to have in their deck into the format, which means these decks' basic land number totals are going down, which means that it actually like replacing their mana source happens less. Like you saw in that game, the second activation, we're out of basics by that already, which is like a little unusual. We already drew 2 of them, but like it's non-zero that like that makes it more appealing. Like obviously if your opponent doesn't have basics, field's pretty good. One of the Lotus Field decks that's in the field right now has 1 basic land. So
yeah,
which is pretty scary given that like you can't field Lotus Field, but you can field all the other lands. And if you draw, your 1 island, now you're just going to be stuck for the whole game if they know your deck list. So very interesting. Let's talk about sideboarding. Start with Dillon's side. We have 2 Duress, 2 Kalitas, 3 Extinction Event, 4 Leyline of the Void, 2 Culligan's Command, and 2 Rekindling Volley. I like the Duresses. I don't particularly like Leyline. I think it's a little overkill. And I like K-Command. It's a recursive card. You have some cards in your deck that are kind of not great. Maybe you end up winning Kalitas because you just have so many main deck interactive cards that you don't like. I don't think that's the case in this configuration. But that's basically what we're looking at. The real story of this, though, is only 2 Graveyard Trespassers, which we saw both of them in game 1. That's a card that's, again, pretty premium in this matchup. And having access to fewer copies is definitely going to hurt this board.
Agreed. And we just saw, Dillon got pretty lucky to just like draw 2 of them, both of them in that game, and they did very well. So
the first one literally ate an activation from Wandering River and a portable hole that would have lined up to kill another 2-mana creature, and the second one just wasn't answered for the rest of the game until it was traded in combat or whatever. As far as on David's side, we have 2 copies Mystical Dispute, 1 Hullbreaker Horror, 2 Dream Trawler, 2 Rest in Peace, a Summary Dismissal, a Brazen Borrower, a Narset's Reversal, a Farewell, 2 Aether Gusts, a Narset Parter Veils, and 1 Distanceful Stroke. What do you like here?
Well, I like the big cards. I think Dream Trawler is in here to come in against the red black deck, and so I think we'll definitely see it come in here as well as the Hullbreaker Horror. Maybe a Brazen Borrower to attack. I think Narset drawing extra cards. Anything you feel like I'm missing?
No, I mean, I like Narset. I think it's just like it's going to end up being a clean 2-for-1. There's not a really good way for them to get around it. If it's in play, it stops their castle game plan from really taking over. You don't really want any of the disputes. Maybe you want Rest in Peace because your opponent specifically has 2 Croxes. You know they have 2 Croxes because they played the second Croxe against you at the end of the game there.
And you're anticipating possibly like the opponent bringing in cards like K-Command and other recursive
so
things.
I could see that potentially being a card you're interested in. I'm not as sold on Borrower. The body's just so fragile, and your opponent's likely to cut some removal, but they're gonna have some removal sparkle. They're gonna leave Dreadbore in their deck, and like it doesn't. I don't think your game plan is going to be to try to get under them.
Yeah.
So my inclination is that you probably just want the Dream Trawlers and the big cards and the Narset. Possibly you want the extra Farewell too. I'm not sold on that.
I was just thinking about that.
Normally you would want it because of the Trespassers. You need sweepers to answer that card. Our opponent being on fewer Trespassers makes it less appealing, but it's not likely that David could put Dillon on 2 Graveyard Trespassers after what happened in the first game. Anyway, game 2 is getting underway. It looks like we got some lands played, and on turn 2 we're going to see a Croxa from Dillon Reed, which appears to be resolving. We're going to discard an Iganjo, going to 17. Cycling an irrigated farmland in turn.
Ooh, probably a few more lands than in hand.
I might have cycled the farmland first. There's a chance you draw something like Jawari Disruption that you might not want in your sequence that you can discard to gain the 3 life back and get to keep the Iganjo in your hand. Iganjo's not that much better, but like the life points are going to matter in this game because you're just trying to stabilize. So the lower your life total gets, the easier it is for your opponent to close the game up before you get to where you're going. In this case, we have a Bloodtide Harvester, no land drop for Dillon, and another cycled farmland.
4 of a kind, though. Might be playing the wrong game today.
Yeah, and 3-drop tribal. A little tough when you don't find your 3rd land. So we see a shoulder head into the graveyard to loot the blood token away, and that doesn't look like a land either.
Nope. Might be another castable for next turn, but not a land.
And we got some Bone Crusher Giants and a Bloodtide Harvester, but I don't think we're doing much this turn. And David's going to take this opportunity to cast a Memory Deluge, not under immense pressure yet, just taking 3 down to 14 in combat this turn. Quickly selects his 2 cards, and I think if he casts a Teferi next turn and has a removal spell for the Bloodtide Harvester, we might see a concession for the purposes of finishing game 3. And we're actually just going to see it now. We're just going to see the Teferi's going to go on stack, and we're going to go to game 3.
Yeah.
And, probably the right choice. I think you're under 5% to win that game. And, we have 20 minutes left in the round. We got to make sure we finish our games.
Yep. We saw how long game 1 took to just whittle all of the blue-white resources out of David. And that's the only way that Dillon's going to be able to win the match. So
it's unlikely that he's going to have a start where he just completely runs him over and gets him dead by turn 6, like barring like mulligans to 5 and things like that. But so I think it's a sound choice to concede here. Might make him have a removal spell. I might attack it once and try to get myself. It might make him have to have one of those things.
See if I have a 3rd land coming off the top of my next draw step.
Sure. Like, and I have a stomp, so I can kill the Teferi this turn. Maybe our opponent's like completely out of gas. But yeah, if my stomp doesn't resolve or my combat set doesn't resolve, I probably would also be packing it in.
Here to win our matches, people, not just play games till the round's over.
I don't think any of the sideboarding changes play draw in this matchup because the cards that are good are not good because they're good at a certain point in the game, just because they line up particularly well. So the players are going to shuffle up and move on to game 3 pretty quickly here. Given that Dillon's on the plate, who do you like for the match? Do you think Black Red's going to be able to take it down, or do you think you'd rather be in the white seat yourself?
I think we've seen lots of players being on the play and having that be just a large reason why they're ahead. So I think I'd rather be in Dillon's seat and try to win.
Do you think that matchup's just close and you'd rather be on the play?
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think that like This version of black red that we currently see is not as heavy on the anti-blue white cards as some of lists are in the past, although you do have the Leon the Veil, which is very good in this matchup. So it's not quite as like unfavorable for blue as in the past. But again, like I said earlier, being able to spend all your resources, being able to do your stuff first is very important in this format. And
yeah. And like you brought up Liliana being this anti-control card, and we didn't even see that impact the first game that Dillon won. So
yeah. So turn 1 duress on a flashback, and we got a nice double Field of Ruin hand for David with Farewell, Fateful Absence, and Teferi. So we're gonna take the Teferi and just play around the Absence and the Farewell. One of these hands you just have to keep. Again, sort of like with the green deck, but even more so. Like you just hands that have lands and spells, it's very hard to mull against the black red deck. They're trying to trade so many resources. It's very hard to go to fewer cards when you're like looking for specific answers.
Yep.
So we pick up a March of Other Roulette as the draw step.
Dillon picked up a Thoughtseize.
Yeah, he's gonna decline to cast it here, electing to stomp. I might have just stomped main phase because this potentially opens you up to a censor or a Terraria Disruption or even a veto, which your opponent could still have in their deck. And if your hand's not quite threat light, but I don't think there's a reason to let your opponent do that. But we'll see. Thoughtseize coming in, seeing that we drew a Howled Fountain as the other card.
I'm a little worried for Dillon here. I don't see a third land yet again.
Yeah, so he has a Dreadbore, and he's got a Chandra, and he's got a Sheoldred, and it looks like either a Fable or another Trespasser. He's going to take the March, which makes sense. The Fateful Absence gives you a clue to get your land start up. Hopefully the Farewell just doesn't have text for the whole matchup, or you can sequence around it appropriately. But it's going to pass without playing his land. And do we aggressively field our opponent here? Make it less likely to draw a land? No, we're just going to get the Howled Fountain to play tap too. We'll let that Harvester the draw. I'll set up our blood token for next turn.
I think I do like we were talking about with the basics. There's already a mountain in play. If we have field, I'd kind of like activating it.
I like it less now that they have the Harvester in play, and I think gaining the 2 life by getting your Fountain like tapped is like probably pretty reasonable. So the awkward thing here is we drew the Blood Crypt, so we can just play a 3-drop potentially. We can just play our Bone Crusher Giant. Attacks for 3. Puts him down to 17, and we're going to cast. That looks like a Fable.
I think so.
There it is. Goblin Shaman on the way.
And that is the one thing that, Dillon knew that his opponent didn't have was an effect like Dovin's Veto or something like that at this point. And so he felt clear to resolve the Fable.
Yeah. And Deluge was the mystery card, which we're currently resolving. The downside here is we're 2 turns from Farewell, cleaning up the whole board.
Okay.
So we have to be very careful to make sure we have enough threats deployed. For example, like if a Teferi comes on this turn and pluses, you can potentially kill it in combat if your opponent has nothing. But we know they don't have nothing, and then the Farewell is going to be pretty hard to beat, I think.
Picking up another Dovin's Veto to hopefully protect the plan there.
If we found the Teferi on the Deluge, of course, obviously it's speculation at this point. But that would be the type of card I'd ideally like to find if I was in the blue-white sea here. Could also again see another aggressive field on the black-red dual land. I mean, that kicks our opponent off their 2nd red mana. You know that because you know that they ran out of basics in game 1. Potentially that's something you're interested in, depending on what's going on. I mean, they can get their 2nd red back from the Goblin Shaman, but you might kill the token before they go to attacks here. We're going to get to rummage some cards away. Believe we're going to discard like Sheoldred and the Fatal Push.
Yep. Picking up another Sheoldred and a Liliana the Veil. And still have a Dreadbore and a Chandra. Not hitting that 4th land.
Yeah, if we can get into combat, the 4th mana can get acquired from the Goblin Shaman. The problem is if you try to go to attacks inside of combat, your Goblin Shaman might get killed. Luckily, that hasn't happened. So we got the token. And I think we're just going to see David take 5. His plan is to cast Farewell next turn. And don't think he's likely to act here. Although he's thinking about it.
He can also just, even if his plan is to cast Farewell, he's got that Castle Ardenvale in play that he can activate and just gain 3 life.
Sure,
blocking
tap
with a
out.
soldier.
The downside to doing that is your opponent gets to resolve a Planeswalker this turn, which does not get removed by the Farewell. And you already have a Faithful Absence to take care of the next threat, but if there's already a Planeswalker in play, it's a little more difficult. Looks like we're going to see damage taken down to 12, and then a rummage of the Sheldred away on the blood token to find our 4th land. Which I like. If your plan is to cast Liliana this turn, you can do that either way. Now you have the option to cast Chandra instead. If you find your land, if you don't, it's not the end of the world. Sheldred doesn't look that appealing at this point in the game. So we're just going to pass. So a respectable play.
Knowing that there's a Farewell coming.
Yeah, I would probably have cast Liliana myself.
I think so too.
And gotten vetoed and then been sad about it, but I can respect waiting. Waiting is reasonable because it will definitely resolve next turn.
That's fair. And then also we can like choose to resolve the Chandra that's going to be taking up for damage or extra cards if we prefer.
So now the question is, do you exile graveyards or not? Right, because you have a Deluge, but your opponent has 2 Croxes.
It looks like the graveyards are staying.
So we're just gonna get enchantments, artifacts, and creatures, and then that's the whole turn for David. So now we get to resolve whatever we want. If we draw brutal Thoughtseize off the top for Thoughtseize into Liliana, letting you know which of the 2 remaining cards in your hand you'd like to discard, is likely to be pretty difficult to get back from. I don't know exactly what's still in David's hand, but we're about to find out. Island, Field of Ruin, Veto, March, Fateful Absence. So I assume you take the Absence and then you play Liliana plus and discard your Dreadbore.
That tracks to me. There's the Fateful Absence down.
Losing 2 down to 18 on the Thoughtseize, of course. And now you just have to sequence around Veto and March for the rest of the game, which shouldn't be too difficult because your threats are all Planeswalkers, so they're not going to get March. So you just got to make sure you resolve them around Veto. And you have to beat a Castle Ardenvale, which, it's not 0. Like the fact that this Ardenvale is going to start pressuring the Liliana and like give David something to do with his mana is like actually really important as Memory Deluge off the top. Wow. So he can pass and flashback a Deluge, holding up his Veto. And then try to find an answer to Liliana off of that. It's probably really reasonable. I think that means you have to actually cast your Chandra into the Veto because you don't want your opponent to flashback Deluge, and it's going to end up working out really poorly for Dillon here because there's just a second Deluge in hand. And here it is. And that can't feel good.
Nope. No way.
Ooh, a Farewell. Those look like 2 absorbs. We're going to take one of those.
Yeah, and that was just a great draw for David to allow himself to stay in this game through the Liliana being ticked up. And there's still a Bone Crusher there in the Adventure Zone, but...
Yeah. And there's the Absence to kill the Liliana, giving a clue away. And then we're just going to stay gold and hold up our Absorb so that the Bone Crusher doesn't come down.
Yeah. And that Fateful Absence was off the top, right? We had taken that with Thoughtseize.
Well, it might have been off of the Deluge, but
true.
We was not the one that we knew about. Drew Blood Cracker Clue. Looks like we drew another Fable, but we're gonna play Bone Crusher and play our tap lane and say go. Opponent elected to not counter the Bone Crusher.
Instead, making a 1/1.
Make a 1/1. Okay. I think that's reasonable. If your opponent had another spell, it's like really scary. I'm gonna say go. We're gonna cash in this human for 4 life, probably. Thoughtseize off the top for Dillon. Probably just gonna get absorbed. Might get vetoed. It looks like it's the card that David drew this past turn. It keeps him off the Deluge, which is like you have to do it. But this turn's gonna end up being this gets vetoed, you chump block and make another 1/1. So not the kind of time walk you want to cast.
Right.
And there's the block. Say go, make a token. Yeah, if any of these windows, if any of these turns, Dillon bricks on a draw step, the Deluge is going to get flashback, and then we're going to find threats to start winning the game.
Yep.
On the blue-white side of the table.
Mm-hmm.
The only question now is, with time considerations, will he be able to win game 3 in time? I believe we have approximately 7 minutes left in the round. Crocs is a good draw. It's one of the better draws you can have. Absorb, putting David back to 15.
Our homie on the floor is telling us that we have 5 minutes left. So
Perfect.
hoping for David to find a way to win in 5 minutes.
Although the Croxa changes the equation a little bit because this is one of the few spells that can get resolved through the Absorb. Croxa trigger, putting him back down to 12, and then the chump block to stay there, making another human turn.
Mm-hmm.
Take a draw step. That looks like
A planeswalker.
a planeswalker, probably a Teferi.
Uh-huh.
The question is, what do you do? Do you tuck the Croxa or do you draw a card? I think you have to tuck Croxa because, and then you have to fade another turn because you can't cast Deluge with the mana this turn if you plus, and if Croxa attacks you, you're going to 9, and then your Teferi will still take 4 minimum from the Bone Crusher, assuming you block the Croxa with your human.
It looks like David agrees.
I guess you get another mana. You can make 2 humans and double chunk and go to 3, but it's so weak to a Dreadbore, like any removal spell. And yeah, Hive of the Eye Tyrant, another great draw. Field eats the field, which shuffles the Croxa away. It's tense movement. This would be a turn where I would want to be flashing back Deluge on my turn. I'll plus a fairy first, obviously, but I want to flash back Deluge on my turn. I want to think about how I'm sequencing on my opponent's turn before like they get to start taking actions.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if David agrees. Draws for Teferi. Get a good look at those. Counting a lot of mana though.
5, 6.
Oh, hard cast Typhon. That will end the game. So as long as we have any, we can activate to make a 1/1, but any spell also makes a shark. And Channel Sokenzan. That might kill the Teferi. This game's getting quite tense, actually.
Yeah, especially because if the spell that David has to make the shark token is a counter spell, and that was just an activated ability.
Yeah, although it's probably a Wandering Emperor because we're good at the game, and none of this matters. We're gonna get a 4/4 shark. We're gonna eat your Bone Crusher Giant, and then we're gonna block one of the Spirit tokens.
And not even taking 2 damage because there's not a spell targeting the Bone Crusher.
Oh yeah, and Teferi gets to live at 1, and yeah, that's probably gonna do it.
Yep.
Teferi's going up. We're gonna put a counter on our 4/4 shark probably. Get in for 5 with Vigilance.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask.
I have
what
18
keyword it got.
18 to 12.
It actually gets first strike.
Oh,
not
first strike. My
vigilance.
apologies. Yeah,
Yep.
the tokens
Yeah.
have Vigilance.
Yep.
We're gonna make a Vigilance token this time.
There we go.
Commendable. And probably just pass the turn. Holding up a Memory Deluge flashback to make a 7/7 shark. and draw some cards.
Does it make a 7/7 shark or does it make a 4/4?
I believe it makes mana equal to what you paid.
Okay.
But I could be incorrect.
I know that that's how Memory Deluge is worded. I think that Shark Typhoon says mana value.
Fun fact, I actually have a Shark Typhoon right here. Let me read it. Oh, it is converted mana cost. So you're correct. You'll only make a 4/4. It's a good
Only
thing.
a 4/4.
It's a good thing that that's probably not going to be the difference maker. So Liliana, I think that just resolved. Because I don't think any of the modes matter that much.
Yep.
We're going to play our land, and we're going to plus. Fun fact, you probably shouldn't play your land here in case there's like an Odawar or something, because your extra land here is not going to matter. And if this Liliana got bounced in your hand, it could be a problem. Although we're past the point of that probably being a big difference here with this second shark joining the party. Dillon already at 14 from the last combat step.
I think they might have gotten that ruling wrong too.
Unless I'm wrong. It looks like it doesn't matter because I think Dillon decided to back up his cards. I think he's calling for today, which is
Looks like it.
reasonable enough. I think even staring down 10 there and an active Teferi and an active Shark Typhoon, plus the 2 cards off Memory Deluge, not coming back in that game. So congratulations to David pulling that game. That was really well played. Great sequencing.